Hi, you guys.
Hi.
How are you?
Great.
Everyone's
How
home
are
for
you?
lunch? I'm good, thank you, Kayla. I'm a little nervous, but I'm excited. So, obviously, welcome to our social media social media workshop. We're going to be here with each other for the next 2 hours or so, learning about a lot of things. I'm super excited. I hope you're really excited. And if you have questions about anything, if this is me, so just ask along the way as I talk and we talk together. And don't be afraid to, you don't need to raise your hand. This is a classroom. I want you to be open. We'll have a fun conversation, be doing some cool things. So before we break out into those workshop sessions, we're going to spend some time in here working on ourselves. I know it's not something we do very often, but we're going to do it today, so let's have a good time, and obviously soon you'll understand what I mean. So who remembers several meetings ago, Farah did a lovely presentation for us, and she talked to us about new ways that we can approach content. Yes, thank you. This you can raise your hand for. Yeah. So I don't know if you remember, but I very, very seriously remember. One of the things she said to us was about taking risks with our content. And this seriously sparked my brain. I was like, that, I don't know why, but it sounded like something somebody had never said to me before. And the only problem was I wasn't quite sure, what does this mean? I didn't know, I just let it be. Then, a couple of weeks ago, those of us who went to Azima together, we saw a speaker, and if you remember during that night, he said, nobody will ever fire you from your job for taking a risk. Again, I was like, so excited. I was like, this is what I've been hearing, thinking about how do I make it a reality? How do I help us make it a part of what we do? Then, like cherry on top of this Sunday, my sister, who's in grad school, sent us, my family, a video of her doing a presentation for her capstone course. And her presentation, just as now this one is today, is based upon a book by Brené Brown called Daring Greatly. And when she sent us this presentation, I remember watching it and thinking, this is it. These words, daring greatly. This is exactly how I would say that we need to be doing things. This is how we need to be taking these risks. And how I would describe that I want this team to be every single day. I want you to feel encouraged. I want you to feel encouraged to take those risks. And I want you to do it greatly. So for the next little while, we're going to discover what that means. Obviously, it's a very brief statement. And how we can work together individually and as a team to accomplish it. It's not going to be easy. We're definitely going to talk about some really hard things right now. They're going to be uncomfortable. And it's not really going to be traditional shula time. I very rarely stand up here in front of you and just sort of talk. But at the end, we will do some more interactive kind of fun stuff. But I really think this is going to make a great impact on our team because I was telling Dee the other day, I was really, really affected by what my sister had to say and then also reading the book. So we're going to start off with a little exercise. And it's going to help us get our brains, and the game's going to help us understand what we're doing. So we're going to do a little bit of social media fill in the blank. We're all familiar with that. And before you answer, I want you to think about what you're going to write down. This is why I have pen and paper. So when you answer the question, this first fill in the blank, I want you to think about it as like an action or like a physical something or like a moment. So let's see. Cool. So first question, vulnerability is, fill this blank. Remember, physical, something that happens. Vulnerability is this. It is this action. It is this thing that I do. Awesome. So we're going to do another fill in the blank. And I want you to tell me vulnerability feels like. So now you're feeling. What does it feel like to you when you feel vulnerable? enough to share what they wrote down for the first one. Lady Bella?
So vulnerability is sharing a concern or mistake you made.
Awesome. Anybody else? Nat?
Opening yourself up to all possibilities.
Awesome. Anybody else?
Letting your guard down.
Well, when my sister sent us a presentation, I followed and played along with her, and I wrote down vulnerability is crying in front of people. You know me? I don't believe in that. So what about vulnerability feels like? Anybody comfortable enough to share what vulnerability feels like to them? Nat?
Exposing yourself, but also being excited about the possibilities.
Awesome. Lady Bella?
Holding your breath to see what the reaction will be.
Awesome. Kate?
It's both scary and liberating.
Cool. So when I filled mine out, I said that it feels like the shakes. My heart is pounding, I'm really nervous. So it's similar to what I'm feeling right now. So, thank you for sharing, you guys. So, Brené Brown, the author of this book, she's actually a vulnerability researcher. She spent over a decade of her life interviewing people, asking them about vulnerability and gathering data about this topic. And she asked a ton of people these questions, obviously, that's her job. And many of them answered with really similar things, like vulnerability is asking for help. It's saying no to somebody, and it's standing up for yourself. And to the second piece, they said vulnerability feels like taking off my mask, or having sweaty palms and a racing heart. Also, people over and over again expressed that vulnerability feels like being naked, right? When I use my example, is that what you have? Yeah. When I cry in front of people, I feel emotionally naked. You can't hide that. You can't hide what you're feeling from somebody. It's literally, it is all out there. They know exactly what you're feeling. So now we're going to play this on the opposite end of the spectrum. Same idea. I'm going to pop up another fill in the blank, and I want this first one to be an action or a physical something that can happen. So courage is. So we're going to play the same game. Courage feels like. Definitely cheated, and I stereotyped you guys with that. Awesome. Anybody feel like sharing? Courage is, Sarah Martin?
Doing or saying something and not apologizing if someone disagrees.
Awesome. Okay.
Courage is running into a dangerous environment in order to serve something greater than oneself.
Awesome.
Doing the right thing, not the easiest.
Awesome. And what about courage feels like? Okay.
Feels when I'm most alive and engaged in whatever I'm doing.
G.
Nothing can stop
Awesome. Nick.
you. Adrenaline rush.
Cool. So, I mean, same thing from her research. Obviously, courage is running into a burning building, and the firefighter here. And courage feels like strength, pride, things we would associate with a lot of grounding and being strong. But, I mean, at the end of the day, do you think these two things are really that different? No, right? So when you have the courage to do something, you're usually willing to be vulnerable. You're running into a burning building, that's awesomely courageous, but you're also opening up yourself to the possibility of getting hurt, or in this very extreme case, dying. And obviously, that's a really vulnerable move. But why does one have a negative connotation and the other a positive? So Olive Renee's research has discovered at the heart of vulnerability seems to be shame. And shame comes in all shapes and sizes. We have shame about the way we parent, or our physical health, the way we look. We have shame in the way that we're stereotyped, and obviously we can find shame at work. This, however, shame and fear, are the ultimate killers of creativity and innovation, and that is literally why we come to our jobs every day, to be creative and to innovate. So, how do we combat this? With trust. That's the first thing we need. It's my favorite way, I think, to combat shame. So, Brene tells the story of her daughter. She's in the 3rd grade. She experiences betrayal for the first time. And she comes to her mom, and she wants to know that nobody, like, how am I going to know that no one's ever going to do this to me again? So Brene came up with a really awesome metaphor that she used to describe this to her daughter, because obviously she can't prevent her from ever experiencing betrayal again. It happens our whole lives. So what she said is everybody's relationship is a marble jar. Every time somebody does something that builds your trust, you get to throw one or a few marbles into their jar. When they don't do something that builds your trust, when they break it down, you get to take one or a few marbles out of their jar. So trust is built one marble at a time. It's not something that's instantly established. You don't walk up to somebody and immediately trust them with all this secret information about yourself. And it's not something that we should instantly take away because somebody does one small wrong thing. And everyday as specialists, as community managers, but more importantly as humans, we have to work to constantly build this trust, especially with those around us in this workplace. And with account managers, with our entire team, it's really important. And this will have a ripple effect, right? If we can build the trust with each other, then we can build trust with our account managers. They'll be more willing to build trust with their reps and their clients, and it'll ripple out. So another way that you can combat shame is finding worth in who we are, not what we do. Writing is art, at least in my opinion. And even when we're doing what we're doing, even when we're creating art on demand, right? We say we're creative on demand all the time. Why? Because we put a tiny piece of our soul into every post we write, every picture that we create. There's a reason why I catch myself like violently scrolling through ThinkStop, trying to find the image that's going to fit best. Vanessa's over here shaking her head. You're like, I can't put this in a job if it doesn't totally represent whatever I'm trying to say. But it's because I'm attaching a tiny piece of me to this image, to this piece of content. So it's easy to think in simple terms, right? If my content gets approved, I am worthy. If it doesn't get approved, or if somebody sends back a V8 or a V9, then I'm not worthy. But you can't think like that. We have to remember, I am not what has happened to me. I am what I choose to become. So we dare greatly every day, and we will make mistakes, and we will do this over and over again. But that's okay, right? We will fail, we will receive criticism, but we have to be able to say to ourselves, all right, this hurts. This is disappointing. I thought this was one of my best content calendars I had ever written. But your success is not dependent on a single content calendar, right? You're not going to get fired for writing a content calendar that was really awesome, and a client came back and said, I hate everything, please change it so that it's really business-oriented. Your client's approval of your strategy is not the value that drives you. You came, you tried, and you will try again. The world is not split into successful social media specialists and community managers and not successful social media specialists and community managers. We all do it, I know I do it. We react when clients and reps give us feedback. we knowingly or unknowingly rate our self-worth on how these strategies, how this content, how this feedback is received by these clients and everything. So what do we do? Well, Brene talks about armors. She talks about 3 of the most prevalent armors with all of her research. And we put them on in order to avoid this, avoid the criticism, and avoid basically facing these situations head on. These 3 armors are foreboding joy, perfectionism, and numbing. So we're going to talk about them. Foreboding joy is that feeling, from what I understand, parents feel this the most. When your kid falls asleep and you're standing over them and you're like, God, this is the greatest thing in the world. Oh my God, something's going to happen to them. So the baby boss in the back is going, yep, pretty much. So it's that feeling of something really awesome is happening in your life, and all you can think about is, oh my God, when is this going to end? This is too good to be true. There's no way I should be having this much fun sitting at a Sens game with my best friend. And I know we have these thoughts sometimes when we finally get to turn around a really horrendous client. It's that sort of little, Brene calls them gremlins, sitting in the back of your head saying well, they're just going to go back to the way they were. Or you have a post that's killing it, and it's well, I can't ever, I'm not going to do anything better than this, so why would I be excited about this post? But we can't live or ever be successful if we're constantly thinking like this. So how do we combat this? We practice gratitude. I'm a huge believer in this. Even things like saying thank you in an email can turn somebody's day around. So joy comes to us in moments, in small, really ordinary moments. Just like trust, we build trust one small step at a time. We have to take the time to enjoy the joy. You don't always need to be striving for the extraordinary, because if that's all you're ever doing, you'll completely miss those small moments. And why would you want to do that? For example, we can't only think that every post we put out is going to be a home run. It can't be what we strive for every day. Because you know your client's best. If 4 shares on an HVAC post is awesome, you better shout it from the rooftops, because you should be celebrating that joy. Another armor she talks about is perfectionism. Now, just to be clear, this is not striving to make yourself better or improving yourself, and it's obviously not the key to success. But, like we talked about before, it's that overanalyzing images instead of trying something new, or being really, really stuck on a post trying to make it absolutely perfect instead of saying I'm going to try it this way. And the best way that we can combat this is by what she calls finding beauty in the cracks, right? Loving yourself because you're human. Sometimes we write emails to clients that say HOES instead of shoes. But it happens, and we have to have the willingness to believe that the person on the other side is also going to find beauty in our cracks, which did happen in this case, which was amazing. And again, this is what being vulnerable is about. It happens. Saying, oh my gosh, I am just a human, that's a hard thing, That's also why I don't like crying in front of people, because I'm a robot. So, the third major armor she talks about is numbing, which we all choose to do differently. I spent a lot of time scrolling around Facebook and Pinterest yesterday instead of facing this head on, because I wanted to avoid working on this, because ultimately it puts me in a really vulnerable position. Some people numb by saying and being crazy busy, right? You have those friends who are like, yeah, let's totally hang out. I'm really busy though. And a lot of people keep themselves really busy because they think that then the truth won't catch up with their lives. Not going to happen. So when you think you're numbing, all you have to do is say to yourself, which is something I've really started doing this week after finishing the book, and it's how I caught myself yesterday. Why am I doing this? This is how you combat numbing. By actually doing quality recharging. It's not what you do, it's why you are doing it. Sometimes you can be having some anxiety about tackling your last calendar, right? Oh my gosh, I'm just gonna come back with 4 edits, why am I doing this anyway? Or maybe you're feeling frustrated, you just got out of a meeting, or you read an email from an AM, and you're feeling really disconnected. But if you can ask yourself that question, then you understand, and you can go do some quality recharging. So, because with everything we do, we need to prepare ourselves to be vulnerable. These are all armors that we put up that we're trying to avoid. Whether it's feedback, whether it's edits on content changes, instead of feeling personally attacked, we just need to view them as like plain face. They didn't like it, that's okay. They are not comfortable with giving something away, it's not an attack on you. Whatever it is, it gets your heart pounding, maybe you get sweaty palms, maybe you start huffing and puffing at your desk. All you have to do is say, what are these feelings and where did they come from? The best way to, not the best way, one of my favorite ways that she talks about dealing with these sort of like anxious feelings is breathing and humor. So there are really 2 ways that you can reality check your behavior when you're sitting at your desk and you're getting ready to angrily Facebook message your friend. Take a step back. Maybe you watch 2 really funny Vine videos first. After you've watched some cats fall off a dresser, maybe you're in a little bit of a better place to respond to an IM from an AM. Or maybe if you do a little bit of yoga like me, you lock up your computer, you sit at your desk and you regain control of your breath. And once you're breathing, then you can go back to that email or that app task update and respond responsibly. Because if you don't feel comfortable owning it, don't say it. Although Brené Brown, when she writes about this in her book, she talks about it in reference to chat rooms and anonymous comments. It works really well for us internally as well. We need to own every update, every email, every IM, and it's okay to not respond until you're ready to do that. Another way we can honor this vulnerability and make the best of it is by creating I-you relationships. So these are laid out by, instead of an I-it relationship where somebody is treating the other person like an object. Now, relating to each other, relating to our account managers, it literally creates like an electricity surge between us. And honestly, it'll usually add a marble to their relationship jar. Because it's a moment where somebody feels heard, where they feel recognized, and it ultimately builds trust with them. But the best question is, are we willing to reach out and connect? Again, this is a step that requires being vulnerable. I think there's a theme here. But can we honor this connection through we need to honor this connection through clarifying our intentions, setting boundaries, and cultivating connections. We have to stop sitting at our desks saying, that's so stupid. I can't believe they asked us that question, or I can't believe they thought that we could do this, because it just reflexive cynicism. You don't really mean it. They're totally mindless responses based on feedback or ideas that we didn't initiate. They're just not something, they're a completely emotional reaction, which obviously Jimmy has spoken to us about not doing. Clearly, working on this is going to take a while. It's not something that we can just all walk into work on Monday and be like, happy-go-lucky, hey you guys, you're super awesome, look at this great feedback my account manager sent to me. It's not going to happen like that. It's going to take some practice. But I want you to know it's okay to bring it up to each other. You hear me sitting at my desk being cranky? I am me. Hey, guess what you just did? You shouldn't have responded like that. I know your account manager is not stupid. And you're right. If we work together, we'll actually lift each other up. And instead of these negative words, we can use the tools that we've talked about today and make ourselves better, even if just a little bit. Who we are as individuals and collectively as a team is at least as important as what we do and what we want to achieve, right? We are more important, in my opinion, than a social media content calendar. And we are a true team. Everybody knows it. Baby Boss is shaking her head back there. We uphold ourselves to standards, even when they're unspoken, And this ultimately pushes us to be a growing and fantastic group of humans. So I just want you to remember, who we are matters immeasurably more than what we know. We ultimately want to hold you accountable for what truly matters most, and that's being a human. Are you speaking to your teammates like human beings? Are you being aware of an account manager's knowledge and feelings when you're explaining to them why we can't fulfill on something? At the end of the day, this aspect will always matter most. Ultimately, we obviously all strive to be better, but we have to be vulnerable quite regularly, and whether or not you know, we're doing it all the time. Vulnerability is at the heart of the feedback process. I know I've said that 100 times. And it's not just in the content writing aspect, which we know we experience in our monthly cycle all the time. We're getting feedback on a regular basis. But take, for example, Jimmy's request in our management meeting on Wednesday. The request to accompany your very general, factual self-introduction with something unique about yourself. The majority of the room said or thought, I saw it in everybody's face, I'm not unique, there's nothing cool about me, I don't want to share anything, I don't have anything cool. Or like when it came to your turn, you maybe said, let me think about this for a minute, like, I'm not cool. But why do we have this reaction? It's not because there aren't 100 unique things about yourself, because I know you can think of some, but we're afraid of the feedback we're going to get, right? We're afraid somebody's going to look at us and be like, that's not unique. That's not unique enough, whatever that means. But did we do this to each other? Absolutely not. We are all snowflakes. Each of us is completely individual. We bring different qualities, different experiences, and unique aspects to this table. But ultimately, we can be afraid to put those out there. Why? Because we feel vulnerable. But we are also constantly learning and creating, and this happens all day, every day here at this job. I talked earlier about how when we create, and even when I'm talking about strategies, contest ideas, we're being vulnerable. We're exposing ourselves to potential criticism and feedback that we may not want to hear. But learning is also an aspect. It's also inherently vulnerable. Admitting I don't know everything, admitting, I don't understand, that can be a huge step towards being vulnerable for some of us. And being able to say, I failed, how can I learn? Can you teach me? That's an inherently vulnerable act. So being honest and open is extremely vulnerable as well. It's so important to be able to say to somebody sitting next to you, to me, to Sarah, to an account manager, I messed up. I don't know. Taking that kind of responsibility is incredibly vulnerable. But again, it could be adding a marble to somebody's relationship jar. It's not a sign of weakness, which a lot of people accompany that with, but it's ultimately a way for you to actually build trust with somebody, an account manager, a teammate. So just even saying like, yes, I forgot to put that in, or no, you're right, I didn't explain that to you the way that I should have. People are willing to appreciate that about you. I know I do, because they know that you're willing to take responsibility in the future. So keeping all of these things in mind, we are going to do one short little exercise. See, now we're going to have some Shula time. And basically I want our team to come up with a little bit of a manifesto, because Brene Brown has one that she's developed, but I'd like for us to contribute to one as a whole group after I've just talked about all these crazy things. So I want you to think about either a vulnerable thing that we can all work on, or maybe a standard that you'd like us all to hold each other accountable for. Just like one quick little line. That's why you also have your pen and paper, so that together we can create one. So keep in mind the aspects of combating shame, honoring our vulnerability, all of the things that I just talked about. And this isn't about perfectionism again. None of us are, I'm not perfect. I'm telling you right now, I do all of these things that I just talked to you guys about. We just want to be better, right? That's why we're here today. That's why we're pumped about having a workshop, so so that we can all be better. So take some time, like just a couple minutes, think about the line that you want to add to this manifesto. I'm not going to stand up here and stare at you. And then we're going to create it. So I literally have like 2 or 3 minutes. So say our line, but I'm going to challenge you a little bit to keep your piece of paper that you wrote this down on and email it to me when we're done with our social media workshop today, because I want to compile them and print it out so that we can hang it up, so that we can see what we've created. So Jeff, we'll start with you.
You are not a reflection of your least successful piece of content.
Awesome. Mario.
I don't know if I did the right thing, but I
You're
just
fine.
wrote like a word of advice.
Great.
When you're feeling stuck or frustrated, close your eyes, and as you breathe in and out, literally think those words to yourself, in and out.
Awesome. Nick?
We will have each other's backs in times of need and crisis.
Dace?
Be courageous enough to teach people we're vulnerable.
Awesome. Dee?
Whoa.
I said, when someone makes a mistake, treat them like you want to be treated if the roles were reversed.
Awesome.
I said, don't be discouraged by what you perceive to be negative feedback.
Awesome. Lady Bella?
Our individual strengths and experiences make us a stronger and more effective team.
Amazing. Nat?
Exhibit patience and understanding when confronted with daily challenges, internally and externally. Strive to educate to reach others' result.
Awesome.
Be more open to expressing both the positive and negative things that are happening with your counselor and yourself.
Awesome.
Always try to be aware of each other's strengths and weaknesses and always push one another to improve and help you.
Fantastic. Chief?
To always remind ourselves that we're lucky to be living in a creative environment. Social media.
Awesome.
I said to be thankful for those around you and the guidance they've given you.
Cool.
To feel confident in your decision and explanation for saying yes or no.
Oh.
To have good communication and awareness to realize what each person is going through in their struggle.
Cool.
Strive to create more positive transactions to your marble jars.
Awesome.
Be a resource for each other when people are in need of help.
Katie,
Yeah, of course.
okay.
Asking for help is not a negative thing or a failure. Don't fear doing it.
Awesome. Lady Moss?
We are human and will make mistakes, but we need to learn to celebrate them.
Awesome. You guys. We can live one of those things every day. We will be a seriously, seriously enviable team. So, don't forget, you write those in an email and you send them to me so we can put them together, because that would be beautiful. So, I know we've talked about a lot of things, but I just want to leave you with a few last thoughts. So like I said, Brene Brown, she wrote a leadership manifesto. And the very last line of this manifesto, I think, sums up all the beautiful things that you just said, all the things that we've talked about today. It says, above all else, I ask that you show up, let yourself be seen, and be courageous. Dare greatly with us. So see if for the next hour, while you attend your awesome breakout sessions, you can be open, you can ask questions, and don't be afraid to get clarification. Don't be afraid to say, I don't understand. We can work on this every day because we want to better ourselves. We have to. We want to be able to better our campaigns, and the first step is making sure that we, as human beings, are bettering ourselves. So again, this isn't going to happen overnight. It's going to happen over time. We're going to have to work hard on it. We're going to have to hold each other accountable. But just, I want you to think about the following that I'm going to read to you as a reminder of what it takes to change. And it's actually like a scene from the characters of The Velveteen Rabbit by Marjorie Williams. I know a lot of us know this. So, real isn't how you're made, said the Skin Horse. It's a thing that happens to you when a child loves you for a long, long time, not just to play with, but really loves you. Then you become real. Does it hurt? Asked the rabbit. Sometimes, said the Skin Horse, for he was always truthful. When you are real, you don't mind being hurt. Does it happen all at once, like being wound up? He asked, or bit by bit. It doesn't happen all at once, said the skin horse. You become. It takes a long time. That's why it doesn't often happen to people who break easily, or have sharp edges, or who have to be carefully kept. Generally, by the time you are real, most of your hair has been lived off, and your eyes drop out, and you get loose in the joints and very shabby. But these things don't matter at all, because once you're real, you can't be ugly, except to people who don't understand. So, thank you guys for this. You have a little bit of time before your next go around. If you are headed to Twitter, then you're going to stay here. If you're headed to ads, you're going to stay southwest. Coolio, have a snack.